some people would argue that they have control of your life.
Given that other countries now have higher longevity, countries with central plans, with single-payer plans, have higher longevity, lower incidence of infant mortality. Their plans are working better than ours now. I can't see why America would come up with a worse plan, especially based on the fact that we can base it on the experience of countries around the world. I just talked to a woman this week who's just come back from Europe, and she pointed out that while she was there as a tourist, so she's not even a citizen there, a tourist in Europe, she had a health problem. They apologized to her for having to charge her $18 for extensive tests. They apologized to her to have to charge her $18 for being hospitalized for a couple of days. They have excellent health care in a lot of the rest of the world. It is usuriousness here that is causing the high prices. It is absolutely crazy. In fact, another thing I heard just this morning, it just blew me away. If a doctor goes to testify in court when they do a deposition, the given price right now for doctors is $2,000 for a 15-minute deposition. Or for $2,000 for any part of an hour. Hello? I don't get $2,000 for doing an interview the last I checked.
What about, for instance, Canada? I have read many stories and have seen studies and everything about people in Canada that that their nationalized system is slow, and if you need a serious operation and you're pretty wealthy, you come to the United States if you need something quick. Would you say that's the truth, or would you say that's some sort of...
That's a good question, and there's always two sides to those stories. For one thing, I've had a number of Canadian friends through my life, and they are all complainers. It's sort of a national hobby there because the winters are so long. Also, you'll find that people in Canada, if interviewed, say the healthcare system is bad, but my doctor is great. Another angle on that is I have a friend here in Asheville who was bitten by a tick last year and got Lyme's disease. And Lyme's disease requires about 18 months of medication. She was given prescriptions that totaled approximately $800 a month, and she didn't have insurance. And she said to her doctor, "Hey, I can't afford this. I'm not going to be able to save my own life." And he said, "I can't tell you this. Go to Canada." She's paying under $100 a month for the same medication in the same bottles, the same color pills, the same amount, the same manufacturer. That $700 difference is profiteering by American corporations. We can do better.
So you're saying it's not the case that Canadians, what I was representing, is not
right.
real.
It may be true that rich people in Canada can come to America and buy their way in and get quicker service. And so I'm sure anybody who's rich here in America can buy their way in and get quicker service. The truth is, poor people in America get no service, and poor people in Canada do get medical care.
Okay. We better skip on to the next question. This can take a long time. Is the deficit a problem for the United States? If so, how would you fix it? If not, why not?
The deficit is clearly a problem. There's no question that we can't endure an endlessly rising national debt. But the current deficit arguments are highly misguided. Highly misguided. Right now, 10-year Treasury bills are paying about 1.5%. That is below the inflation rate. That means that people are actually paying the U.S. government to hold their money. It was amazing when Standard & Poor's dropped our credit rating last summer due to the fiasco going on in Washington about the debt ceiling. Where did smart money around the world go? They bought U.S. Treasuries. Despite the fact that our rating has just been dropped, they bought U.S. Treasuries because it's the safest place in the world to put money. So if the government's borrowing money at 1.5% and the inflation rate is on average 3%, we're actually profiting. The federal government's actually making a profit on Treasury bills right now. If you have a mortgage and you could get a 1.5% mortgage on your house, you would refinance in a heartbeat. If you have a car loan and you could get a 1.5% car loan, you drop everything to get to refinance that car loan. It's at such historic lows that this is a great time to do that counter-cyclical spending on the part of the federal government, stir up the economy again, build the infrastructure of the future that we need. We need high-speed broadband nationwide. We need high-speed rail in a lot of corridors. We need to fix our highways. 1 in 4 bridges in North Carolina is considered dangerously out of date right now. We have a lot of work that needs to be done. Now is the time to do it. We got people who need work, and we can borrow money cheap.
Tell me this. Some people would argue that we have been doing heavy spending, for the last several years, and that not much has been achieved there. And also, some people would argue that if you keep spending, that, well, for instance, we're the world's currency now, and there's some discussion, that in other words, things may not go on where we're having this situation that you're describing much longer.
That's true. The explosion of debt in the last 10 years because of the wars was unconscionable. We should never have cut taxes at the same time that we decided to engage in 2 major wars. Another problem with warfare is that you pay money for things that blow up. When you pay money for a bridge, you get to use the bridge for 50 years. When you pay money for a bomb, it's over. Once you blow it up, it's gone. And I would say that we have done little good in the Mideast in the course of those 2 wars. We've left Iraq in a mess that's probably going to devolve into 3 countries. Afghanistan was an invention of the British Empire during the Raj. It has never been one country. It's never been successfully one country. We're not going to leave Afghanistan in any better shape than we found it. We have squandered America's wealth, squandered our treasure on wasteful wars. That's the source of the huge debt. The second piece of the debt, of course, was the bailout program. Now, some of it, the bank bailouts, I'm against. I think that was a badly managed plan. On the other hand, the stimulus program has saved the butt of every municipality in this country. The city of Asheville would have been dead in the water without the stimulus money these last couple of years. Right now, we're using some of that stimulus money to retrofit every street light in Asheville with LED lights. We're going to save $365,000 a year on electric bills because of that stimulus money. And it's put people to work, it's built sidewalks, it's built bike paths, it's repaired our roads, and it's helped our schools. You're going to find in all of your communities, the schools are going to be in very deep trouble this next year because the Republicans in Raleigh undercut the schools by cutting that 1 penny sales tax, and they've been running on stimulus money these last 2 years. When that stimulus money runs out this year, you're going to see sharp cuts, larger class sizes, fewer teachers. We're going to be undercutting our future because we're selling short the education that we need to have the jobs of the future. We need to pay for education because education is what pays us back in the future.
Thank you on that. I want to ask you just one more follow-up on. There's a million things we could, but we better skip onward here. You said you're against bank bailouts, implying that you might be for other. How do you get selective in your bailout? Which bailouts you are for and which ones you're against?
Well, if you're in a sinking boat, you definitely bail it out. I think we'd have been money ahead if we had taken the bailout money for the big banks, the banks so-called too big to fail, and portioned it out to every American citizen. I don't know exactly how much that would have been. I don't know, $50,000, $100,000 a piece. Let them pay down their mortgages. The money's going to end up in the banks anyway, but at least it would have accomplished something on the way instead of going into suddenly reinflated CEO salaries, bonuses for these CEOs, these banksters and crooks on Wall Street who walked away with our money. That was absolutely a fraud on us. I blame both parties for that. I don't think either party did well in that adventure.
But other bailouts, such as maybe General Motors?
Okay, the General Motors bailout is a great one. It worked. The U.S. government bought into General Motors that was collapsing. They got the unions to negotiate with the owners. The unions took concessions. The owners made changes. GM is now, again, the largest car manufacturer in the world. Now, if you didn't want to save those millions of jobs that are associated with the car industry, that's fine, but I'm in favor of it. And they've come back with better models, with more efficient models. That was a bailout that really worked. We bought into GM, and then we sold it back on the open market. I hate to think what would have happened to, especially the Midwest in this country, if we'd allowed GM and Chrysler to go under. The millions of jobs that depend both on the direct employment and the peripheral employment for parts, the shipping, and then the communities where people who work at those factories spend their money, we would have been in much, much worse shape. That's the kind of cuts they did a couple of years into the beginning of the Great Depression, which slaughtered us and created a depression that my parents reported to me was absolutely painful. They remember hunger. And we have enough hunger in this community already. We have enough people experiencing food insecurity in this country, in this community already. I hate to think what would have happened if we hadn't stepped in to save those two car giants.
Skipping on to the last question here, how would you fix America's immigration situation?
America's immigration problems are a creation of our industrial policy that we've pursued. So-called free trade has hurt workers in all three countries, both Canada, Mexico, and the United States. We went and dumped a whole lot of cheap corn on Mexico and put farmers, big farms there, out of business. So now we got a bunch of out-of-work workers. Meanwhile, there was hiring going on here, and those workers came here to work. If you look at where those workers work, substantially in the agriculture industry, and sometimes construction, and also in meat processing, which is another food area, they're being hired because they're cheap. And the reason they're cheap is because they're illegal. They can't go to OSHA when there's a safety problem. They can't demand fair treatment under the wage and hour laws. A person with a green card can demand fair wages, can demand a minimum wage, can demand safe working conditions. So we've created the problem. To the extent that undocumented workers compete with American workers, it's because they're illegal. It's exactly the same situation as we have with the drug situation. The reason we have a huge drug problem in this country is because it's illegal. Ron Paul is dead on about that. We're creating gangs in this country. We're creating a huge flow of cash over the border. We're creating incredible criminal problems, but the criminal problems are around the money. It's because there's big money there. Anytime you create a black market, you create problems. So we've created a black market in labor, and it's causing problems. We've got a black market in drugs, and it's causing problems. I think we should change the way people can get work permits here. People who are willing to work in jobs where they're demanded should be allowed to get work permits, and I think we should streamline the path to citizenship for people who keep their nose clean and want to become American citizens. Looking around this room right here, I can bet that none of your ancestors had green cards when you came here. They didn't require paperwork. Mine didn't.
Thank you, Cecil.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.